Now to the coronavirus, the epidemic that continues to spread globally. Now, with an increase of cases here in the United States, most coming from passengers from the Diamond Princess who tested positive for the virus, we want to bring in RT correspondent Sarah Montese Oka to break it all down. Sarah, we're starting to see, obviously, these quarantines popping up. We know about California. Is this something that could happen into our own backyards if this disease or this virus continues to spread?
Well, Scotty, there are quarantines that are already set up right now across U.S. military bases. However, some new states are now petitioning to try to keep the people who are contaminated with the virus, with the coronavirus, outside of their cities and state lines. Now, both California and Alabama pushed back on a proposal to house some American passengers with coronavirus. Officials in Anniston, Alabama objected strongly, though. Senator Richard Shelby even took it directly to the president. He tweeted out, "I just got off the phone with the president. He told me that his administration will not be sending any victims of the coronavirus from the Diamond Princess cruise ship to Anniston, Alabama. Thank you, POTUS, for working with us to ensure the safety of all Alabamians." But the Alabama Department of Public Health said it had no plans to actually transfer patients there and that the FEMA Center would only be used as a backup plan. Local officials in Costa Mesa, California, they filed a request for an emergency injunction in a federal court.
We want to make sure that the community knows that the city of Costa Mesa has no role in deciding whether or not these individuals who have been tested positive for coronavirus are to be transported into our community. And so, because we were not given the opportunity to play a role in that decision, we decided that the only way that we could stop the process was to seek a federal court judge's help and get the injunction. We were able to do that with the amazing...
Well, that restraining order was extended for at least one more week. Now, here in the United States, the Center for Disease and Control Prevention reported at least 53 people are now infected with the coronavirus. 36 of those cases came from passengers from the Diamond cruise ship. 3 people repatriated from China, and 14 U.S. cases. 2 of them were transmitted from person to person. Now, most of the quarantined U.S. citizens have been contained in military bases across the United States, with 5 primary bases. Here are 3 in California, 1 in Colorado, 1 in Nebraska, and 1 in Texas. Now, those can hold up to 1,000 quarantined people, but there are additional locations around the country that can house up to 20 people. However, none of those have yet been used. But meanwhile, the White House Budget Office sent lawmakers an urgent $2.5 billion request for a plan to respond to the coronavirus. Many Trump critics, like House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, responded to the president's request as long overdue and completely inadequate for the scale of this emergency. Now, Scotty, the CDC and the World Health Organization both warning, saying that they expect a growing number of new cases in the United States to spread quickly. And if it continues to spread that quick, it could become more difficult or even impossible to contain it, given the current methods that they're using now, which is isolating people with the virus.
And that's the thing, Sarah, our hearts go out to these victims. Obviously, we want them to get the best health care. We also want to continue, like other countries around the world are doing, protecting our communities and making sure that this does not continue to spread.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting to see how these illegally stand up in courts. These states and these communities that are appealing, please don't send the quarantines to us. Thank you so much, Sarah, for covering.
Thank you.
Now, I want to go to the economy. As obviously, if you're watching the stock market, it has absolutely plummeted over the last 2 days. It's gone down, then it's gone up, then it went back down. It has to do a lot with coronavirus, maybe. Now, economic analysts say it's lowering growth forecasts and has already caused the stock market to see one of the worst days yesterday in 2 years. The Dow has been off by as much as 800 points throughout the day today. And there is concern it could spark another interest rate cut by the Federal Reserve. I thought we just had this conversation less than a month ago. Well, who would have predicted something like the coronavirus would hit the globe? So to go further in depth, we turn to Tobin Smith, CEO of Transformative Research. Tobin, we had you on the first week the coronavirus was starting. You didn't send too many red flags up in there. Now we're at a point where we saw the stock market take the biggest down spiral in 2 years. Let me ask you, though, is this Corona? Some people are saying this is Bernie Sanders because he's anti-capitalist. Or is this just the expected adjustment and possible leading to a recession that has been predicted by so many over the past few months?
Well, let me break that down to a couple of pieces. Remember, we had that trade agreement in October. Woohoo! And, particularly companies like that we own at Transformative Research are, NVIDIA, AMD, those semiconductor chips that are all the basic parts to make this technology work, right? Well, they all up 100 or 200%. We get into January 20th, January 25th, we hit all-time highs and then all-time highs and all-time highs. The answer to everything in the stock market was buy more stocks. That's where we're at. Now, in the market, that's called being extended. We were way extended anyway. What no one saw, obviously, was coronavirus. But then the narrative became, okay, yeah, but look what China's doing. They've shut down these cities. They have 500 million people under, quarantine. Hey, it's going to be okay. And then all of a sudden, we get back here on Saturday and Sunday of just last week, and now it's Italy going from 200 to 800, and Iran and France and Spain and so on and so forth. So now the risk is, the base case was it's going to be contained. And I got to tell you, Scotty, what I'm telling our subscribers and what I'm telling people in a variety of ways is the base case now has to be that we're going to have some form of a pandemic. And today, the CDC in the United States came out and validated that. Today, the WHO is about 0.1% away from saying that. Australia, other places that have excellent, virologists, epidemiologists, are saying that just the way this thing works is we're going to spread around the world. So that new cloud comes over. And the difference here is that there's no headline out tomorrow that says, hey, the trade war is over. There's no central bank that can come in and cut rates 50 basis, 0.5%. But that doesn't help people who don't have a vaccine. So it is a risk off. We are very risk off right now because we don't know. And when you don't know, that's when you can't make good decisions.
Well, and that's the thing, you mentioned the fear, and there's nothing like the fear of war we have seen literally send the stock market down and up. But at the same time, you have cooler heads that can prevail, they can all talk peace, and we keep on going. In this case, you're right, we don't know when this is going to end, how it's going to end, and why, what is going to be that final factor that causes it to end. So there is a lot of unknowns that make this even much more volatile of a market than of any other predictor that tends to come in. One thing that we
Go ahead. Well, I'd say, I don't want to just overemphasize this, that, viruses start in the wintertime when it's cold, and they usually peter out in the, spring, summertime because they heat. They don't like, viruses don't like heat. It's just that the way this one has worked, it could take 20, 30 days before somebody realizes, this becomes symptomatic, number one. Number two, it's the supply chains. Remember, for instance, you're a fashionista. What are the buyers doing today for clothes? They're buying clothes for back to school. Well, 75% of that comes through China. And you know what? When it comes to a phone, again, our semiconductors, when you make a phone, your Apple iPhone has about 1,100 parts. You can't ship that phone unless you have 1,100 parts. And many pieces of this puzzle are stopped. If you look at FedEx today, FedEx is diving because we finally got the air shipment down. It's down 11%. How do you get chips to China? You don't put them on a boat. You put them on a plane, right? And then secondarily, if you look at the shipping in and out of China, the export stuff going out of China has fallen off a cliff. And there's numerous companies that keep track of this. And the ones that we subscribe to say they've never seen anything like this. So it's the supply chains. We've never had, when we had the big China virus, first time, China was 3% of the economy. Today, it's now almost 17%. Right.
Well, and I think Procter & Gamble announced 17,000 of their products are going to be backlogged. Apple's already running out. I had to get a green phone when my phone broke this weekend because there was none other, and I'd have to wait months if I was going to want one. Tobin, thank you for covering. We're going to have you back on and see if there's anything lemonade that we can make out of these lemons soon. But let's get through this first round of the up and down markets. Thanks for joining us.